let's kick it off then with day three, where we're going to be looking at some case studies, some examples where we've added significant traffic, including seven-figure sales, and looking at how to do this at high volume and what you need to be doing when you are considering the type of content you put out and how it should be optimized. Okay, so we'll just kick it off here with just a little example that I was looking at over the weekend. So this is a business that we're working with. It's a small ecom store, right? It's doing, I think it's just into like the seven figures per year. And they primarily have been growing through paid ads, but like many, they hit this wall. Okay, so they got to, a certain level of spend each month, generating about 100K per month in revenue, but just could not grow. So they came to us looking to expand, right? And so nothing really happened in the first couple of months. Okay. And this is just the Google traffic. And so, of course, there's other sources of traffic as well, but they mirror these results. So nothing really happened for a couple of months. And if you were a business owner and you pay for something and then you see a straight line for 2 months, you would, of course, be skeptical, right? Um, that's kind of common sense. And again, that's why this whole thing is can often be wildly unpopular. Now, quite often you will see results immediately. You will see this content starting to be picked up to start drive traffic. But of course, you have one post here. By the time you get 3 months on, 4 months on, you might have 100 plus pieces of content working for you, right? So just the linear growth, right, is something that would be happening here. But because the algorithms take a little bit of time to react and to warm up to you, then this growth is slow. But where they are now is their top selling product and their most important product that they sell from the store is, I'm not going to say the exact Apple product of what it is to give away exactly what they're doing, just to be respectful to the brand, even if you wouldn't exactly be able to copy it and figure out what we've done. But it's an Apple product. It's an accessory for an Apple product. They sell a variety of these accessories, and it's a very high demand product, right? So there's a ton of this stuff sold all of the time. And they are now at 4,500 visits a month. So you can see in the past 1, 2, 3, 4-ish months, they've got 8,000 clicks. And now, where they've leveled out at here, well, not leveled out, but they're increasing. If you just said that this was now to stay level, and what we see is once things start to pick up, it just does keep on going. So it's actually going to increase. But already now they're at 4,500 visits a month. So likely in the next month, they're probably going to hit around 6,000 visits. So in 1 month, in the next month, they're likely to beat almost all of the traffic that they got the 5 months before. So this is really, really significant growth when you look at that. But in the beginning, nothing happens. And of course, these are people looking exactly for this product. So some of the content would be relating to, I'm trying to not give the product away, but relating to, say, some of the features, right? Or some of the customizations that you could have for this accessory. So people looking at those different options and what they can do, as well as just looking for the best and looking for that specific product that's showing up. Okay. And they've done this with only one post per day, by the way. And so they now are getting thousands of visitors now every single month. And about 80% of their traffic is around this top product, as that was the main thing they were pushing for. And it's also the one with the most demand. So this is a significant win, and this traffic will just continue to drive. So all the investment they've made in their content will just continue now to keep paying long into the future. If they stop producing content, if they stop doing the distribution and promotion, they'll see that it will start to dip off. A competitor will start to come in. So it's really important to continue it. But this content that they've already put out on these buyer questions around this product will continue to drive them traffic for years to come. And so this is what you're looking to do. This is just Google, doesn't include Bing, doesn't include YouTube, doesn't include AI answers, and all of these different things. This is just nice and easy to track. And it's we like to track this because it's really difficult for the client to argue with us. Sometimes when you do stuff on their YouTube, right? They say, well, that wasn't down to you. We did something else. Sometimes, if they are getting some views or attention in other places, they won't necessarily attribute it to you. They don't track the sales. Whereas with Google traffic, we can filter this and we can show like, look, this was exactly from our content. Okay, and so we can even filter this and show that this was only from our content. We can list out and say, look, it's these particular posts that are driving this campaign. Okay. And so a few questions in the chat is like how much content was being done. So I'll just write this. This is one blog post per day. Okay. So around 30 posts per month. And it's around um, one AMP campaign. Okay. So this is where we do it to about 300 plus sites. Okay. To essentially promote a top post. Okay. And then there's a couple of small things in here which we'll have done. Like we also have, say, maybe one premium per month, okay, which is just essentially bigger sites to promote the site. So little things like this. Okay. So this is like roughly the level of content that they're doing. They've done this over about a 4 month period here. Okay. And in that time, they are getting serious traffic for their top selling product. Okay. And this is the type of thing we see over and over and over. Okay. So it's a normal process. And in order to start doing this sort of volume and being able to do it well and being able to do it at the quality that is required, okay, then AI content is a requirement. If you want to be all over YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Google, AI answers, news sites, all of these different things, then it's a lot of content to create. So AI, you're going to have to use it in the process because everyone else is beginning to use it in their process as well. And therefore, overall, the level of volume that you're competing with is increasing in the level of quality that you're dealing with, despite everyone talking about AI slop. AI slop will largely just be filtered out by the algorithms and just ignored, but there's quality content being produced with AI, and there's more of it. And so you have to wake up to the fact that higher volume, higher quality is a requirement, but even AI itself alone is not enough. Okay, so if you're using keyword tools or kind of common research tools that are out there, then what you're going to find is that you end up with generic content, generic topics that don't drive sales. And we looked at examples of that over the past couple of days. Okay. If you're using just ChatGPT and regular AI tools, then, you know, you'll put in prompts, but you might not be an expert and it will do what it normally does, which is give you magazine style content, for example, if it's for an article, which doesn't work, and whatever it is and whatever platform it's doing, it's just going to give you kind of the average or misguided content, and so you need to be an expert in order to work with that. And it's also very slow. Okay. But you'll often find that if you're just using ChatGPT and most AI tools, it won't produce the level that's needed. And so therefore you have wasted effort. Okay. Whereas our process of question mapping, okay, these buyer focused questions, and then creating this in all of the different formats in a way which is optimized for the algorithms because we understand what works and we continually test that. And it's also why we like to keep a small group of agencies and brands which we work with as well, where we're all learning from each other and seeing what works, and we continually refine the system. This is giving us a big, big advantage because of the speed of the workflow, the quality of the content, the way that it's optimized for the various different algorithms that it goes to, and our strategy around content. Okay. And to kind of look from a high level of how the algorithms are working across all of the different platforms is you've got three layers to this. Okay. And so layer one is the content on your site. So as an ecom brand, you're going to have product pages. Okay. You're going to have landing pages. You're going to have FAQs. You're going to have some resources. You'll have an about page. You'll have some collections. Okay. So you want to make sure the content on your site is good. So if, for example, you only have product pages and you don't have blog posts, well, what's the problem? Well, your product pages for user experience, you can't have a 2,000 word description of the product in most cases. It's probably too much. It's not a good user experience when they're coming through and they just want kind of like the high level information to decide if they're going to buy the product. You might have some FAQs on there, but it's not going to answer all the possible questions and all the problems that your product solved, all the things it does have, it doesn't have, all of these different things. So you would have a limited level of ability to actually drive traffic, especially if there's no information out there about your brand in general. There's not that much. It'd be relying only on your product pages. So that's why you do blog posts, because it supplements with all of these different questions, like the thousands and hundreds of different questions that you can have on any product. Plus, then on top of that, what happens if your product pages have bad descriptions? They're not very descriptive. It's duplicate content. It's just the same description that everyone else has. Okay. Or it's just lacking key information. That's also going to hurt you. All right. What happens if you create so many collections on your site, and just, so many pages, and those pages are low value, that the algorithms get confused because there's too much choice and it becomes difficult for them to figure out what's important. So these are all things that you would consider, for your own site. And just quite simply, the top kind of three things here would be good descriptions, okay, on product pages. Okay, I would say a strong about page, okay, to describe your brand so that in general, AI has got good information about what your product is and what your brand stands for, and then blog posts to answer questions. You could also have, for example, on your site, you could also post some videos. You can include podcasts and stuff like this, but this is kind of the three main things that you really need to worry about. So, when you go to an SEO company, they give you a list of 1,000 things that you need to work on. This is typically all that you need to do. And any SEO stuff is typically taken care of by Shopify anyway. And the good descriptions on product pages, I'd also add here, also titles of the product. So that's also descriptive so that it can be found in the first place. All right. And so then you've got amplified content, which is just the idea here that you take some of the top pages, whether it's product pages, collections, blog posts, whatever it is, and you amplify that content by covering it in further detail in more and more places. And so if, for example, let's just say you have a blog post here on, let's say, we'll do it on cell phone covers. So let's say cell phone covers for Samsung Galaxy S29, something like this. Okay. And that's what you sell. So that's the product page. Then you have a blog post. So this is the product. So that's the product page. And so it's a cell phone cover for Samsung S29. It could have different colors, and so on. And then it's going to have certain features, right? So cell phone covers for Samsung S29, but we want here, say, a cell phone cover, let's say unbreakable, okay, and is metal, okay, because that's a specific feature of it. And so the blog post might focus, okay, on something, say, like best cell phone covers that are unbreakable metal for Samsung S29 as an example. So here is the blog post. And let's just say that this blog post here, let's just say it takes off. Let's just say this is a really popular product. This blog post is really taking off. Then we want to amplify this blog post, okay, with video, okay, with a podcast, okay, with articles, okay, on the news, okay, with infographics, okay, slideshows, right? We could have, reels and shorts, okay, and also social posts, okay. And so you would then have all of this content to promote this. And so this is the amplified content here. And you might be thinking, Chris, this is a bit weird. Like, would you really do a video on such a micro topic? Would you really do a slideshow on this? Well, I definitely do. If you've got a product like this, would I do a slideshow which focuses on the unbreakable metal? Sure, why not? Why can't you create that and put that out there? Okay, so we would do the slideshow exactly on that topic. We probably do the infographic as well, which is just a visual representation of the same information that's in the blog post. Okay, now, would we do a podcast on this topic? So the podcast, the video, it starts to get a little bit weird, right? It's like, okay, would we do a news article on it? Well, yeah, we can do a news article on it because at the end of the day, it's a product and any product has its right to make an announcement about a great feature that it has. So we would make an announcement about the product and the unbreakable metal feature and why that's cool, why that's great, and so on. Okay. And so, sure, we would do that. And so, but what about the podcast? And so, like, say for all of these, like the news article, the the infographic, okay, the slideshow, it kind of makes sense, right? That this will just be on topic. But the video, the podcast, the reels, the social posts, we might need to adjust a little bit. And so the video might take a little bit of a different direction, okay, of why you need a metal cover for your Samsung S29 as like an informational piece of content. Okay. And so this isn't supposed to be a viral video. It's an informational video answering a specific question on this. Okay. And so there are people that rather than reading an article, they would prefer to see it in the video. And you would just adjust the format just a little bit. So you would discuss this reason and you could give examples and so on and things that can go wrong. And, this isn't a 2 hour video, it's like a 5 to 10 minute video. For the podcast, okay, would it make sense that, you're going to have two hosts talking about cell phone covers for a phone model? Kind of ish, but it's still a little bit weird. And I'm taking quite an extreme example here because in many different niches, like let's say this was for a heart rate variability device, say like the Aura Ring, which is measuring health. That's something that people would discuss in depth, right? That would be super, super topical, and it would make sense to cover this in more detail. But I'm picking a hard one, for example. So what would we do with the podcast? Well, so for the podcast, we would just broaden it a little bit. Okay. So it could be something like how many times I've broken my Samsung S29, right? And then it's just like a conversational piece. And then, of course, they're going to talk about the different products, features, things like this. And within the podcast, it will advertise as kind of like the sponsored message, this particular cell phone cover. Okay. And you could be creative and kind of put whatever you want here. And similarly in Reels, right? It could be something as simple as plastic cell phone covers suck, right? Or something, more aggressive, right? Are for losers, right? Something like that, just to be like a little bit more sensationalized to get attention. Okay. And that would make a perfect 1 minute video. Okay. And you could even, you're going to mention that it's a Samsung S29, things like that, but it should be like entertaining to your target audience and also maybe get them thinking about actually buying a metal cover. And of course, the social posts would just be kind of matching some of these different things here where it makes sense. So some of them would have the reels going out. Some of them might link to and include the slideshow or the infographic. Okay. And some of them might just be talking just in general about how metal covers are much better while slipping in the mention of a Samsung Galaxy S29. Okay, and so this amplifies all of the content. So it's sending clicks and traffic. It's also sending algorithmic signals. And what you then find is that by doing this frequently, the blog post traffic increases. It gets more search traffic. It gets more AI mentions. Okay. And the product page being linked to also starts to do better because, for example, Google follows where people go. It goes, oh, they see this video, they go to the blog post, they buy the product. Oh, they do a search, they go to the blog post, they buy the product. So all of this starts to increase, and you will also see over time the website as a whole will increase, and you'll also see that if you're doing this right, your followers, your interest, your traffic on all of these other different platforms also gradually increases as well. And depending on the niche, certain ones will increase more than others. Okay, so we've covered layer one and layer two. And layer three is about these higher level signals for your brand in general. Okay, so just as you are now getting more brand mentions, then AI and Google search is trusting you, just as you are getting listed on authority sites more often. Okay, as you know, you're essentially as part of some of our promotion, we do guest posts, right? All of these things are increasing the reputation of your brand with the algorithms. You're getting more social followers and you're also getting more interest, consistency. We'll look at this in a moment, but this is essentially where your stuff is showing up more in people's feeds to those people who are interested in it. Okay, EAT signals is expertise, authority, trust, and experience. Okay, so just essentially signals that you know what you're talking about, and just by publishing a lot of content on the topic that gets seen is a signal in and of itself. Brand mentions are a signal of that. Directories I mention here because ultimately, as your site gets mentioned, more gets seen, more it actually gets picked up by automatic directories. And you could also maybe supplement that by also submitting it to some places as well. Okay, so that's something like that we would do, say, for our agency clients is once a year we'll submit them to some directories just to top some things off. And so the layer three algorithm signals at the site level. Okay, so the impact of all of this stuff is then at the very level of the website. Okay, the website and the brand, it increases in its ability to attract traffic among all of the different algorithms, search, social, AI, video, all of these different things. They now trust it a little bit more from doing all of these different things if it's done in the right way. So just give me a one in the chat box if that makes sense. Okay, that this is working on three different levels to grow your brand across all of these different channels. Okay, and there's a lot going on here, but it really comes back to a simple thing of post 1 times per day at the very least. You could be posting 20 times per day, but at the very least, post once per day. Okay, amp, 1 to 4 times per month. You could, of course, do that again a lot more often, should you want to. Okay, and if you do this and you do it in the right way, then you're going to see these growth patterns like we showed before. Okay, which have been responsible for generating millions in visitors. Okay, so there's now three types of algorithms to consider. Okay, and a question's coming up a few times. I answered it a few times already, but I think people keep missing it. Is people are asking what's the difference between a post and an AMP? Okay, so a post is like a blog post on your website. An AMP is all of these different things: search, social. You're doing videos, reels, infographics, posting it to hundreds of places, right? So advertising that one post, all right? So like I said here, you've got your blog post and you're amping it with all of this multi-channel content across lots of different places. All right. And so there's three types of algorithms, okay, for traffic. Now, every platform has a slightly different version. So like the Google algorithm is different to the Bing algorithm. The YouTube algorithm is different to the TikTok algorithm, but they share a lot of things in common, when they're in these groups. Okay. And so which one on here is the most important for your success? It's this one right here. Okay. The search algorithm. Why? Because it's people doing research on products they want to buy. Okay. And it doesn't matter where people find out about your product, whether they find about it through search, through, right, and AI answers like, also include, I cover that in search as part of search, whether they hear you about on your podcast, whether it's from a YouTube video, whether it's from an ad, it doesn't really matter. In the end, they're always going to come back to some type of research. Okay. And so search algorithms primarily are Google, Bing, AI answers. People do a little bit of searching on YouTube, although YouTube tends to be showing up inside of these platforms. Okay, people do search across social media, and that does happen. It's significantly less than Google, but it's still a significant portion. And so when that happens, there is a level of kind of the search algorithms at work, and it's someone hitting the search bar, say on TikTok or YouTube, rather than say just browsing the feed. Okay, and so this is an active search, and what essentially drives traffic for the search algorithm is two things: being popular, i.e., authority, popularity, traffic, brand mentions, those sorts of things, and having very clear answers. That's it. Okay, same for Google, same for Bing, same for ChatGPT. That's all that it's about. And so if you publish a lot and you provide clear answers, okay, especially in text format, then you're going to be referenced more often. Now, AI answers, Google, they do use these other formats like videos, podcasts, YouTube as well. And so that's also supplementing because when they see the information in other formats, okay, that kind of falls under both authority and providing the answers in different formats. So they also like that. So essentially, everything that you do with this whole process of posting blogs, amplifying it across the internet and all of these different channels, search absolutely loves this. Okay, so to win on search is very simple. Post a lot, okay, and then promote a lot on many channels. Okay, that's what wins in search. That's like 90% of it. There's, of course, some nuances, some little things, but that is the thing which is really moving a needle. Okay, the interest algorithms, these can be very, very, very powerful, especially if you're in a niche where you can really have a long-term interest or people research very thoroughly and they do that over a prolonged period of time, whether it be a few days, a few months. During that time period, the interest algorithm could be essentially recommending your content. And how this works is essentially if people respond well to your videos, to your social posts, to your images, and they stop, they absorb it, they look at it, and they look at more of it, then the interest algorithm is going to show it to those types of people more often. And that's why the big factor here is consistent topic matching with the audience. So you need a consistent audience that you're targeting, and every piece of content needs to appeal to them. Okay. And so if you take, say, Jay was talking about hair loss, he's researching that stuff on a regular basis. If a video about hair loss comes up in his feed, he's likely to watch it. Okay. And when he watches that, he's being moved in a certain direction by the brand, maybe discovering certain ingredients, a certain methodology, a certain product. And then will also, if he's responded well to that video, maybe watches some more, he'll start seeing more and more videos from that brand. And so that's how you can kind of land and slip into someone's feed by consistently targeting an audience that has the interest. Okay. And so this has also a good ability to grow because it can grow to the size of your audience that's essentially interested in what you're doing at any given time. Now, the follower algorithm is kind of the least important one here because ultimately it requires having an existing audience, getting them to become subscribers. And while you have subscribers on YouTube and other platforms, YouTube, TikTok, they basically ignore your who you subscribe to, other than maybe sending you some notifications about it if you turn it on. But they primarily just look at you could subscribe to a channel, they'll never show you a channel if you never watch the video when they show it to you. They just respond by what you watch and what gets your attention. We're going to send you more of that. So they match it by what you actually respond to and your interests. Spotify and email newsletter, this is where you've actually got followers who have chosen to subscribe and will come back and watch and engage with your stuff over time. And this really only works if you've got good long-term engagement in terms of, it's going to be something that they're going to be interested in for several weeks. And so many brands, this often isn't so important. And so you might have a podcast out, they might find it through search. Okay, they might listen to it once, get the information, but they're not going to come back again. And that's okay, right? But if you do have, say, something, say, like, let's say it was to do with the, say, Aura Ring, which monitors your health, and people will follow that long term because they're interested in improving their health and they're using that device on a daily basis. So a newsletter would make sense. Okay, whereas if you were selling I know, say, let's just say a piece of equipment for a replacement car part, for example, then that might be less likely to get a following because the problem is fixed immediately. Okay, and then it's done. So, for example, like a tire pump, something like that. But you might be able to, if you were selling multiple different types of car equipment, then it might make more sense to keep them interested. But if you were just selling, say, a tire pump, then it wouldn't really be able to build followers so easily. So that's something to consider. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here, okay, in terms of how the algorithms work. And so we're going to focus specifically now on the interest algorithm. We talked about search and social, that's quite, or search traffic and AI answers, that's quite simple of just posting a lot of content, giving good answers. But social media and video, they work by looking at how much people click, how much time they watch, and then if they binge watch all of your other content, okay, or similar content. And so if you have high click-through rate, high watch time, and they binge watch your channel, then that's just a big signal to show your content to other people like them. If they don't click and they don't watch much and they don't watch anything else, then YouTube's not going to show your content to anyone else who's similar to them. Okay, social media works in exactly the same way, except that, if you can't click on it because it's just scrolling and looking at an image or a post, then they look at kind of if you stop scrolling and engage and look at it, they look at the engagement time and they look at if you keep on engaging with more and more of their content over time. So it's exactly the same thing. Okay, just slightly different in how it's measured. So what this means is that you need to stay on one audience. You need to appeal to that audience, get them to click, get them to watch, and get them to watch more stuff. Okay. This means if you create content for, let's just say, and we'll go through an example here. Okay, so let's just say sometimes your content, let's just say you're selling microphones, and sometimes your content appeals to studio technicians, sometimes it appeals to podcasters, sometimes it appeals to grandmas doing Zoom calls, then because it's a different audience every time, the next video might not interest them. Okay. So, for example, if you did one video of like the best microphone for studio technicians would watch it. But then when you do the next video of like best microphone for doing Zoom calls, the studio technicians would be like, what? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. That's not interest. And they will ignore the video. Okay. And so then because they've ignored the video, it's a vote against your channel. And so the algorithm can't understand who you're trying to make these videos for. And it takes it a lot longer to figure that out, which makes it just in general more difficult for them to decide whether to show the video to an audience or not. So you need to stay on audience. It's really, really important to consider. And I'll give you an example. Like if you're a musical instrument store, okay? So let's say you're a musical instrument store, we work with a big musical instrument brand, okay, kind of like a home brand name. And if we did a general social media channel, well, sometimes it's going to be on guitars, sometimes it's going to be on pianos, okay, sometimes it's going to be on synthesizers. And so, sure, we could make a channel like that, a YouTube channel, a Facebook page, this sort of stuff, but it's not going to work very well. It will work okay, but it's not going to be great. Okay. So what we decided to do is we decided, okay, what's your best sellers? Where do you make most of your money? They're like, oh, we make most of our money in synthesizers. Those people, they are super enthusiastic. They buy tons of different equipment. Okay. And they just engage the most and they're the most keen. And often also sometimes buying other instruments as well, because they hook them up to the synthesizers and they're often studio technicians. So they tend to be the best audience. And so we said, okay, well, how about we make a channel, right? Let's say we call it Sally's Synth. Okay. Something like that. Okay. Where, Sally might be their brand name or related to their brand name, or just a new name because we just wanted to create a new channel. And then they have this dedicated channel that only covers synthesizers. And so we actually split up kind of their accounts. And instead of making an account on every possible type, we just decided we'll pick the biggest and most important. Okay. As well as maybe having a general one, just so we've got somewhere to post everything else, understanding it won't do as good, but this one will really have a better chance at taking off because it's so focused on the audience. Okay. So this is really, really important when it comes to creating your channels. Now, in terms of the type of content that you would produce, then there's different types of content. So there's answer content, there's attraction content, which is kind of like viral content. Okay, there's announcement content where you've got something new, and there's like this authority brand building content as well, where you might talk about what your product is. Okay, but it doesn't really have search demand because, if you are not known as a product, then there's no search demand. You're not really answering necessarily a question people are asking, but you're seeding that initial information about what it is that you do. Okay, so you have these different types. All right, and so this authority brand building as well could also be like opinion pieces, things like this, but it's not really anything that people are searching for, but it might be something that, you can build a following with or differentiates you. Okay. So this looks complicated with arrows going all over the place because yes, you can do all these different types, but really all you're mainly focusing on is answers. And we're going to talk about why the answers are so important. Obviously, it's what buyers are looking for, but it also makes for some of the easiest type of content to create. Okay, you can plan it very easily, get a lot of topics and just turn it on. You will do a little bit of viral content should you want to, okay, because it helps build your audience and widen your audience. But you need a little bit more experience of this, and you have to be careful not to go too far off topic. Announcements, of course, you will do as they come, as you've got things to announce. It's worthwhile doing and putting that content out there. And of course, if you've got some authority pieces, some opinion pieces, some things that you're doing within the company, then of course you can put that out there too as well, right? Kind of similar-ish to announcement, but it could also be like an opinion piece. But this is where you really want to focus. And what you find and why I've got this here is where do you think companies focus? Especially when you've looked like around at like some of the examples like Jay showed you, is they focus not on answers. They almost never focus on answers. They focus on viral topics because that's what they see everyone else do. They're browsing Facebook and so on, so they just focus on that. They focus on announcing their own stuff very heavily, and they focus very heavily on their own opinion pieces and what they think, okay? Or they use ChatGPT and they're not thinking about any of this, and it just randomly posts like magazine style articles which don't really fit into any of these. They're kind of, I guess they're trying to be authority brand building pieces, but they don't do that because it's just the same generic stuff as everyone else. Okay, so the ChatGPT crap is like the attempt at authority brand building content, but doing it exceptionally badly, and it's guaranteed to be the same as everyone else. Um, and so the vast majority of the marketplace, the vast majority of businesses are doing it completely wrong. And so when you see this and you recognize this, then you can just understand that, okay, you can just put all your time into answers as just the primary thing that you're going to focus on. Okay. And that just simplifies things a lot down. And you don't need to confuse yourself with all of this other stuff, which is the minority of traffic and has a much less of an impact. Okay. So I include them on here because people want to do this sort of stuff, but it should be recognized that this is where the money is. Okay. And so when you do this then, and when you produce these different types of content, they feed in to these different types of algorithms. Okay. And so these arrows are going all over the place. But what this really means is that if 90% of the content you're doing is answers and search is the primary driver to answers, right? That when people have a question, they type it in a search and they link through to you as the answer, or they recommend you as the answer, then this is where the focus should be. Okay. And so Google is the biggest source. There's also the traffic from social media. People do search on YouTube. They do also search Google News. They might also check out podcasts. So also being in those places is very, very helpful. They check out AI for sure. And these are typically very boring questions like best treadmill for bad knees. Okay. And so it's just simple informational content. Okay. And really all the algorithm is looking at is, are you an authority on the topic? Are you popular? Did they get a good answer? Okay. Follower platforms, this is really like Spotify, LinkedIn, and email, then this is only going to work in certain niches. And this is really about cycling your audience that you get. So first you have to have an audience to really want to worry about this. You have to have significant traffic in order to build up significant email list, significant, say, LinkedIn following, right? Significant podcast following. And it depends on the type of business. If you would be the type of business that would get good long-term followers. So for example, if you're in, say, the parenting niche, then cool, you've got years ahead of you of someone to follow on the journey with you. If, however, you're selling cell phone covers, this makes less sense to really focus on this. Okay. But it's recognizing that it is there. Okay. And then you've got the feed app platforms, which here is this will be, and it's hard to see here, so I'll change the text color. But it should be like 10 to 30% of the traffic. So really like here it's 90%, 70 to 90% of your traffic would be coming through search, and that's what's going to be driving the sales. But 10 to 30% would come through the feeds. Now, this can, in certain niches, this can take off a lot more and be really, really significant. But in general, okay, for most products are overall a bit boring. Most questions, most things about the products are overall a bit boring. People tend not to follow brands as much. So this stuff does definitely work. It definitely helps. It improves conversions. It also feeds your ability to show up in search because all of this content is also feeding your ability and feeding the algorithm to get that traffic. But it's not going to be probably your biggest source of traffic. And it's also not going to convert quite as well because when people are scrolling, they're scrolling on killing time. They're not scrolling to find a specific answer. Okay, so it's still great. And the great thing about this is it does build audience. It can essentially recycle back in because they've seen some of your content and then it shows them some other videos because maybe they came through from a search and they watched a video on YouTube and then they see the feed recommends a few other videos and it reminds them about your brand and they go back. So this stuff is useful. Okay. It also recycles the audience a little bit and it also can bring in a new audience who becomes aware of your products and so on. But depending on the niche, it's not going to be quite so important. Okay. But if you do have a very, very specific niche, a very, very specific audience, and you can really dial in the content for that, you can actually build a really good following of, say, let's say studio technicians for all of your musical equipment that you sell. Okay. And then because you're putting out great info, then it is going to bring people through. And also you will from time to time have examples where you put out a piece of content and it does get shown to all of the people who have that interest. And I'll give you an example of that. And so, yeah, here's one right here. So this website, Mobile Home Crew, they put out one short, which was 3 things that will get your mobile home. Let's have a look. So we'll go over to, so Mobile Home Crew, YouTube, we can have a quick look at the video here. And we can look at the shorts. You can see they've only got 7 subscribers, but they've got 1,000 views, even with only one video, because the video was a hit with their audience, and their audience is people with mobile homes in Florida. It seems like the YouTube algorithm was able to figure out that they should show this to the several hundred people out there who would be interested, and this got them sales and deals because of this video. Okay. And the video simply,
of moving your mobile home and
so the video just simply gives tips of if you're going to move your mobile home, what Florida rules you have to consider, like the different mistakes. Okay, trying to move a home that's built before a certain date, you can't do that. Skipping the structural inspection. So just some simple bits of information that if you were considering moving a mobile home, then this would be very useful info. And the interest algorithm was able to figure out who else should see this video. Okay. And so that's how it can kind of build your audience and grow the interest as well. But tends to be that it's going to be less of your sales and traffic overall compared to search. All right. So give me a 1 if all of this is coming together and making sense. All right. That really there's 2 key things to pull from this. Search and answers is the biggest thing you should focus on. By going multi-channel, you increase the chance of getting search and AI answer traffic, But this multi-channel content, the video, the social media, all of these things, they give you some additional benefits, and you may as well tap into and grow that traffic, although it might not necessarily be the biggest source, but sometimes this stuff can take off and you may as well do it because it all feeds into each other. Okay, as we've talked about. All right. And ultimately, informational content wins. Okay. And it wins for a number of reasons. Well, one, like viral content, right? When you go viral, say on a certain platform, viral content is often viral, then it disappears. Okay. And it has an extremely low conversion because often to go viral, you need to be more entertaining than be informational. And therefore, you're just entertaining, you're not driving any sales. So you don't really sell anything. Okay. Whereas you can have a very small number of views, okay, but a high conversion. And because it's product and information focused, people actually do react and they do buy things. Okay. So ultimately, a much smaller amount of traffic is needed when you focus on buyers. And for example, there's this weird channel here, which is an AI channel. It's the same presenter wearing the same thing, speaking about some weird topic and looking at schools and maps. Okay. And is getting hundreds of thousands of views. And so this idea, because there's a belief that if it's AI, people won't interact and watch the content, that 100% isn't true. If the content is interesting, okay, and it's clear and it's something that people want, people will actually view the content, okay? And like with this mobile home crew example that I just showed you, Paul here, who owns a site, was like, this gets him leads. Okay, the informational content gets him leads. And so viral isn't the right way to go when you're doing social media, but info is. And here's the reason why is that you only need good information, clear audio, simple visuals, and consistent posting. You don't need to have content that's absolutely crazy in terms of production quality. You're sat here, we're sat here, looking at my relatively simple, straightforward slides here. And, I'm not a charismatic TV presenter, but we're here going through the information, right? Because presumably the information is useful to you. And the same thing is true with AI content that you can produce. And so what they actually want is they don't want high production, super engaging content. They want facts, especially surprising facts work really well, actionable info, fresh updates, solutions to problems and niche expertise. And if you give them that and they're interested in the subject, then, one, you've answered their question, they might buy the product, but also then they keep coming back. And so the magic when it comes to, say, video, social content is the structure, using open loops, throwing in a bit of humor, making sure you stay on topic to the audience and being specific in your answers and not being, very vague and making it go on, right, with a lot of fluff. Okay. And so what people think matters when it comes to, say, video, social media, all of this stuff is that you need these viral skills, professional editing, you need a crazy personality. But for the majority of people, unless you're into that, that's really difficult and likely to burn out, a lot of anxiety kind of coming from, having to become an influencer. Whereas informational content, you can do it with AI, where AI is right now. Okay. This was already working a year ago when AI content was much worse. AI content is getting better every single week. Okay. Every single month. And already this content works, drives sales, and it's what people want. Okay. So valuable info, clear explanation. Okay. Just putting this stuff out and it's low cost and it's scalable. And so your role is to put out a ton of content because you yourself, okay. So have you ever scrolled YouTube or TikTok or Instagram and just been bored by the content which is being shown to you, that it's just not interesting? Okay. And so the gorilla here wants to see more banana content, but he's seen so much, he's seen it all before, right? And we all experience this where the stuff that we're interested in, we eventually kind of begin to run out of information. Okay. And so, given that people are asking more and more specific questions, more specific information, and that there's now an ability to create answers and interesting and well-structured content that doesn't currently exist. And there's so many new questions that are asked every day. So 15% of Google searches every day are completely brand new. There's such a demand for massive amounts of content that's very personalized, that's very specific. And so it's your role in your niche to answer those questions and provide that content. Okay. And so volume is what really, really matters here. Okay. So speed and volume wins. Okay. And so I'm going to give you an example here of someone else who's doing multi-channel marketing and multicasting. Okay. This means that they're putting out content regularly. They're putting it out in a lot of different places. Okay, they're repurposing it for all the different channels. They're optimizing it for all these different channels. Okay, now they do it using a mix of different AI tools. And so this is Julian Goldie, Julian Goldie's agency. Okay, he has a YouTube channel where he uses AI video for his YouTube channel. He was previously up to 45K per month in revenue from YouTube. His agency and his client services and his coaching and so on and his groups bring about 1 to 5 million per year. I think probably about 2 to 3 maybe a little bit higher. He's getting a ton of X impressions, a ton of impressions on LinkedIn. He's getting organic visitors. He's got tons of subscribers. Okay, so this is now up to, I think, about 250K in YouTube subscribers. He's got a team, I think, of about 50 people. But to put all of this together, he's using several different tools. He's creating professional coded workflows in AI automation platforms, which is essentially like building your own systems. He's got several people working on that. Each campaign has a lot of man hours that go into creating all of this content uh, in all of these different formats. And as a result, obviously, I don't know the exact cost, okay? But there's a high per campaign cost that happens with this because of all the people and all of the tech and everything involved and all of his time and everything else. But this is working incredibly well, okay? It's just he's doing this the what's now the manual way. He's using AI heavily, otherwise he'd never be able to do this, but he's doing it the manual AI way because he's an expert. He lives and breathes this stuff. This is his area of expertise. So really the only type of person that could pull something like this off is as someone whose whole business is doing this sort of thing. Okay? Because otherwise wouldn't be able to have the level of expertise that's needed. So a typical brand that doesn't work day in and day out with every single AI tool, reviewing every AI tool, creating workflows, and has several years of experience in the algorithms and doing all of these different things would never be able to pull something like this off. Okay, but congrats to him for being able to pull this off and do this. But it's very manual, right? He's got to come in here. He's got to create the topics. He's got to use AI to write the scripts. He's got to use video recording editors. He's got to use AI video creation. Okay, he's got to use a tool to create the shorts. He's got to use a tool to extract the transcript, to then get the blog post, to then do infographic design, which he doesn't actually do the infographic stuff as part of what he does. Okay, but if he did, that would take time. Then there's all the social media automation and also using the different tools to publish it and submit that. He's not using Buffer and Hootsuite. I'll imagine he's hooking up with some of the APIs and some of the make.com and NAN automations that he does. Then you've got to debug this stuff and fix it. Things will go wrong on a regular basis. And because of that, you have to have a human control review for all of this stuff that's going out and then do the manual platform distribution and monitor everything. Okay. So it ends up being quite an intense system. Okay. But it's well worth it, right? But if you compare this to, I don't know exactly kind of like how many man hours would go into this, but somewhere if you've got several people working on each piece of content and putting it all together and editing and all of this stuff, then it's pretty significant. Whereas what we do, right, it's done in 20 minutes. Okay. You're having to use several different tools. Here you've got it with inside of one tool with an Ampcast. You would need a multiple person team to do this and an expert leader of that team. Here, you don't need an expert leader. You don't need anyone. The software does it for you. The tools guide you through it. Okay. The overall cost per campaign, I don't know if it's 5,500. Okay. I'm not too sure, but ultimately the cost is reduced massively because you don't need a big team or even any team to do this. I don't know exactly what his return on content spend is. I know his business is profitable, But I doubt with all of these expenses that it comes close to the level of return that we get, especially given that he's got like a 50-person team. So when we're doing this for agencies, their content spend, we've seen it even in excess of 50 times the spend that they have on content. Okay. Here, there is some automation in the distribution, but essentially all these flows have to be set up manually. And how many APIs and so on can you work with and maintain and fix and all of these different things? So we have a multi-person team doing that for you to maintain all of these connections to all of these different places and automate the whole process. All right. And so here he's making somewhere between 1 to 5 million annual with a full team, monetizing this through his courses, his agency, and everything else. Whereas with Ampcast, you don't have a limit on really where you can take this because the input and the costs are so low. So it's really down to how much you decide to invest. All right. And then ultimately, when you kind of look at the entire workflow, that essentially all of these manual processes, even when you're using AI, okay, when you automate them, and you use it inside of one system, it's much, much faster. So speed is really, really, really important here. And just to, give you an example, if I go and look in Canva here and I've made a little video, okay, just a 30-second short. This 30-second short, me doing this at about the fastest I could possibly do it, and making this manually with different AI tools, and I'm really good at this stuff, and being able to do it quick, then this took me about 20, 30 minutes. We can watch the video here to see what it's come out like. So let's just see this. But this is made with different AI tools manually, um, and then put together inside of Canva to create about a 30-second short.
They say Zuckerberg is no pussycat when it comes to Facebook's ad revenue. Now he's wearing a gold necklace and transformed his image from geek to bro. But with ad prices rising, most businesses just throw money down the toilet. But here's the thing, instead of making him richer, you could be growing for free. Social content, short videos, posting consistently, that builds your audience without paying a dime. So stop buying Zuck another gold chain. Start making content and build your own empire. Follow for more.
Okay. And so this video is okay, and it took me about 20, 30 minutes to put together. I would have liked to have maybe spent an hour to get it pretty good. And the interesting thing is, and we can look at an example in a moment, but when you create a video with Ampcast, then literally the amount of time it takes you to make that video is the 1 or 2 minutes of input at the beginning. Okay. And the video is just automatically created by the time you get to the end of the workflow, which takes about 20 minutes for all the different pieces of content. The video is already there and created. Okay. And I would say in 80, 90% of cases, it's just ready to go. You don't need to make any edits. And if you do need to make edits, that's about another 1 to 2 to 3 minutes to do. Okay. So this is creating both a short and a 5 to 10 minute longer informational video as well. So AI is great, but AI tools themselves are becoming too slow. And bear in mind, it took me 20, 30 minutes just to create a 30-second short when I'm an expert, and also using various tools which I've created to help me script it, things like this, which you might not have access to, right? So this manual process is something that some people and some businesses think that they can do because they think they can go to ChatGPT and ask it to create a blog post and that's going to be quick and easy. But the reality is there's a lot of steps and a lot of things which need to be done and a lot of expertise. Okay. And so if you want to win at this, then volume is key. Okay. And just to kind of clarify kind of the impact of volume here. So when you do higher volume, and this is true across search, this is true across interest platforms, even follower platforms, okay, but especially search and interest platform, YouTube, okay, Google, right? AI answers all of these different things is as you get more traffic, as you become more popular, as you build more trust, the algorithm gives you a boost, okay? And so if you do one piece of content per month, if you're a local business, this can be enough to have an impact, say, on the search algorithm. If you're a local business, if you're an e-commerce business, one post per month probably isn't going to do that much for you. Okay, so you will see a little bit of an increase in traffic. Let's say, assuming here that every piece of content gets you, say, 100 views per month. Okay. That might be a little high or a little low depending on the industry. Okay. But just as a hypothetical number. Okay. So that would add 1,200 views per month. Okay. But it's done nothing to persuade the algorithm that you are more important. And why it might take a while to begin with, and you might not see any movement, is because the algorithm might not reward you at all. It might not even want to show your content. It might only give you 1 view per month. Okay. Um, but when you do it once per day, you start to get the algorithm boost. Over time, you start to become more popular. You get rewarded for being more popular just because your traffic's increasing. You get rewarded because there's more brand mentions happening as you put that content out there, right? And, run amps or post in multiple places and do this multi-channel thing. Okay. You're also getting more traffic because you get topical authority because you're speaking on the topic a lot. Then Google knows that you're an expert, but also YouTube goes, okay, this is a channel that's about this topic and they post on it regularly. So I'll show this content to people who are interested in that. So you get this algorithm boost. Okay, but when you really start to do this, not at just higher volume, but also post it all across the internet on a more regular basis, and you actually boost your brand mentions, you boost your traffic in a much bigger way, you boost your backlinks. Okay, your traffic is feeding into each other. When people start searching you, they're finding you all over the place, and the trust is much higher. And so lots of these things start to kick in together. You get a much bigger boost from the algorithm. So if you just post on your own website, you do get a boost. Okay, from posting regularly. If you don't post regularly, you won't get a boost. And if you post multi-channel, you get a really significant boost. Okay. Fidelis is saying, what should we promote when we amp stuff? You should promote any page on your website which is high value, which is either performing well or driving a lot of sales. So that can be your homepage, product pages, individual blog posts, whatever it is that's driving significant sales and traffic. You check your Shopify stats, for example, to see that, and then you know what you would push. And so when you look at this, like the algorithm boost over time is if you're not posting regularly enough, then you don't get any boost. It just stays at 1x. If you post daily, you start to see a slow increase over time, but it kind of levels out. But if you post daily and you're posting all over the internet, then you'll see this increase faster. Okay. And then the multiplier will be much higher. And kind of how that pans out over time is a big, big difference in traffic, where posting very little, you get a little bit of traffic. Posting daily, you get significantly more traffic. All right. But posting all over the internet drastically boosts the traffic. And so, when we looked at some of these examples, all right, here, it's like they get this big group, this big growth, and they're getting such high traffic by the end of it. It's because, right, of all of these multipliers, the fact that they're being posted everywhere. The big breakouts come from the fact that you've built the algorithm trust. When you see these big jumps, okay, right, when traffic really starts to increase, that's to do with the algorithms having that trust for you. Okay, so your job is to, number one, publish every day, okay? And then number two is publish everywhere. Okay, and Jay, I think you have a few examples where you've kind of seen this come to life and what it really means, because I think this is massively underestimated of how much this stuff should be done and how important it is.
Yeah, definitely. So what I want to do is I want to play a couple of videos first. All right. And the reason I want to do that is because Alex Hormozi, we all know him. He's killing it. He's worth listening to because he's actually building businesses. He's done incredibly well and he knows what he's doing, right? And if you just listen to a couple of things he's saying, I'm just going to play a few shorts, not long, in total, roughly 1 or 2 minutes, but check this out because he's got some really important stuff here, right? Which applies to what we're talking about with volume, right? So check this out. First of all, it takes one thing to succeed. I'm going to play this for you real quick.
Know that something could double your business with one move. Why would you do 3? Just because you have this compulsion to be busy, to mess with your team, doesn't mean it's what the business requires. And so a lot of people use the business to satisfy their own ADD, to satisfy their own need for novelty, when the business thrives on same. We love to tell these stories, but what we don't tell is the guy who just said, you know what, I've got 3 levels of my membership and we're doing $1 million a year. How do I 10x my traffic and get to $10 million a year? And then once I'm there, what do I need to do to get to another 10x of traffic to get to $100 million a year? We don't ask those questions.
So that's the first one. And then
it's hard to fathom when you're starting out that someone can actually do 10,000 times more than you. The amount of volume and repetition that is required to excel in any domain is typically not twice as much or 10 times as much. It's usually in the order of magnitudes of thousands of times as much work and repetition as you think it is. I think that is the fundamental discrepancy that causes people to fail. Is that they thought that I post 1 time or I'll post 10 times and all of a sudden I will become famous or I'll get viral, or my marketing will work on my 10th ad or my 10th door knocked or my 10th email that I do outreach on. That's when it's get me over the hump. And it's like the more experienced guys are like, okay, how do I send 10,000 emails a day and do that for 10 years?
the next one, and then finally, this one's even shorter, so just real quick.
Starting out for getting their first customers, 100 outreach attempts per day. You spend $100 in ads per day, or you work for 100 minutes on content and you post it. And then you do that for 100 days. And I promise you, if you do that, you will have a customer. Like I've never to this day had somebody do the full 100, all 3, and not have customers.
So the key thing I want to put across, right, is the fact that, like Chris said, most people don't have an idea about volume. And volume negates, and I want you guys to write this down, volume negates everything, right? Pretty much. Because if you have enough volume, doing it the right way, obviously, then it negates everything. You know, people are like, oh, will it work in this niche and that? Well, have you posted, bro? No. Okay, well, why don't you post and we'll talk about it, right? Everybody wants to fix the world's problems, but they don't want to do the work first and figure it out later, right? Where there's a very famous book, it's called Ready, Fire, Aim. Give me one if you've read that, by Michael Masterson, 0 to 100 million, right? Amazing book. But the key takeaway, I can just summarize it for you real quick, is rather than ready, aim, and fire, he's saying ready, fire, aim. It's all in the front, you know, the cover of the book. Whereas a lot of people get involved with this whole, oh, no, you know what? I need to adjust myself first. I need to figure this out first or whatever. But ultimately, creating more content will create more traffic. Very simply, I'm going to dumb this down, right? Chris is going into lots of detail. I'm the simple guy because I'm not very technical, right? And so I like things just very, very straightforward, straight line, bang. And if you answer more questions and you post more content on those questions, obviously doing it right, in a way that the user will interact, engage with that content in the right way because it's built to convert, how can you not win? And the person who posts once a day versus a business that posts, let's say, once a month, I mean, who's going to win? Obviously, right? It's down to volume. And so the fact is, if that's done correctly, I'm not going to go into too much detail. Chris has shared some of these stats already, but this is a business at 12 months, right? At 12 months, we got to 50% of the site's traffic coming from the blog, which we're amplifying using our platform, right? But ultimately, 224,000 clicks came from the blog's traffic. If you look at the graph, it's seasonal. That's why it dips off a little bit, and I'll go into that in a second. But that's like irrefutably down to us because we're in charge of the blog, right? And we're talking about traffic growth of 158% in the last 6 months, 221 visitors to the blog to 50,000 on an average basis. How? Not overnight, but because volume negates everything if done correctly, right? So if you could, if it's okay, like the key message I want to get across right now is if you guys can type in the word volume in capital letters, just to reinforce, you know, what we're talking about here, because it comes down to literally that. Like, you know, it's so funny. We've got like, because we do a lot of cold email outreach, for instance, and guess what the biggest problem people have with cold email outreach? It's what you're typing in the fucking chat right now. It's volume. Every single problem can be solved by volume first. But people don't want to think that. They think there's a magic bullet or one blog post is going to get you 1 million visitors. Impossible. But 100 posts will get you there, right? If posted on the right stuff. And so, yes, there's a caveat. No, it's not, mindless posting, but it comes down to building over time, stacking, believing in the process. And the process is, again, it's a simple thing. Questions, repurpose, post, right? And publish, right? It's a very, very simple flow. And 200x is what the blog grew compared to before we started working together. And then at month 15, and by the way, let's put that into cold hard cash. We're talking about 221,000 visitors in total for the year. But if they were paying for that, I'll go into that in a second. Right here, the average CPC is $2.63 in that niche. This is all facts, right? If they were paying for it, you're looking at half $500,000 they'd have to spend to get the same impact, right? With ads. How much did they spend with us? A fraction of that, right? And we've actually broken it down, and I'll go into that in a second. But they generated from that 1.6 million from the blog attributed sales. Fact, right? But anyway, this is what I was sharing, right? So posting content regularly, consistently, boom, 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 not an overnight thing, not a quick fix, but 221 to 50,000 average monthly traffic in the last 12 months, right? This is at 12 months. We've got a 15-month review as well, which I'll show you. But what I'm trying to get across is you cannot achieve this without volume, right? If you post regularly on the right stuff, the traffic will grow. 200x compared to before we started working together in terms of the blog, which is 100% down to us. This is what I was sharing. So 221,000 visitors. If they were paying for that with Google, you're looking at average CPC of $2.63, which would cost them $500,000. So give me a one in the chat if everyone's watching this. If you miss everything else, this is the key thing. Facts, data, numbers. You cannot fuck around with that, right? And we're very, very focused on that stuff. Because if you're spending $500,000, how much are you going to get back? Well, they generated $1.6 million from that blog. And guess how much they actually paid for it? They didn't pay the $500,000 because they didn't do this with Google. They did this with us, right? They paid a fraction of that. We're looking at like $60,000 roughly is what they spent with us to generate 1.6 million attributed directly to us because there is no blog without us, right? And then we're looking at a further 1.1 million from the traffic generated to the site, right? Site wide. And of course, if you look at the two, when did the site started to get more traffic? It was obviously after we started to pull visitors in from all these questions. Give me a 5 if this is making sense, because this is the key thing. Question answered, bam, blog, come to the site. Question answered, bam, blog, come to the site, right? Question. Obviously, there's a bit more to it, but if you do it the right way, you've got thousands of these things. That's why they post it every day, because the topics are just, just too many, right? To even cover and think about, but they banged it out and they let us get on with it. And this is what happened. And of course, you're going to get that referral traffic to the rest of the site. As you can see, it correlates, right? And they win. Why? Because they trusted in the process. Let us do what we do, and we blasted this with the volume. And in total, you're looking at $3 million from the site-wide traffic and the blog traffic combined in a 12-month period. After 15 months, and this is why we keep saying it's all about pushing that volume, being consistent, and getting to a place where if you look at this on the screen, you can see seasonal drops, they're normal. 251% year over year with typical seasonal spikes and drops. I mean, that's incredible. And
they're looking to double again. It looks on track to double again this year.
What's going to happen in year 3 then and year 4? Like, it's trending in the right way. And again, doing shit the right way, answering questions, posting everywhere. And somebody asked the question earlier, what are we promoting? And I think Chris answered that. But ultimately, how do you find what's working? Well, you're posting on the site. Like, give me a 1 if you know what Google Console is, right? We all do, right? Well, that's it. There's your answer. You're posting and you're going to get a winner from the questions that you're answering, right? One of those topics are going to fire after 2, 3, 4 weeks or whatever it might be. You're going to get a winner. You're going to pick that winner. You're going to amplify that winner. That's it. And post that or direct traffic and the content you're going to create is going to enforce and amplify that piece. And then you do it again and you do it again and you do it again. That's literally all we did, right? But again, it comes down to just being able to post at volume, right? That's the key thing. And so what I want to do real quick here before I hand it back to Chris is, because we can throw stats at you all day long, right? But it's obvious what we do, how it works is a beautiful process. It's like, I said yesterday, it's almost like going back to how things should be done, right? It's like a value thing. You know how we always say, oh, in the good old days, people treated each other like this and had honor and integrity and respect. And if you have those things, then life works out, right? Well, if you post the right content on the right subjects, on the right topics, answering the right questions, you feed the market, you give people what they want, you've got the user in mind, you show the LLMs, you show Google, you show all of the algorithms that you give a shit. And if you give a shit, what happens? You get rewarded. I mean, it's not complicated, right? But many people make it complicated. And the funny thing is, like, I spoke to a publishing business just the other day, right? And I think I shared this with Chris. And so they publish like novels and stuff. They actually coach authors. I can't tell you the name for obvious reasons, but a really stern lady was on the call, right? I had the first call because we were overrun with calls. I had to take some from the sales team. We normally don't, Chris and I, but I did, and I jumped on and I said, "Hey, how's it going?" She's like, "Can you just get to the point? Can you just like, what do you do? Do you like post content everywhere? How does it work?" And blah blah blah. I was like, "Can I just ask you a quick question? How much content have you posted up until now? Let's say in the last 6 months. Can anyone guess how much you think that she might have posted? Put it in the chat real quick. This is very important because business owners think they know what they're doing when it comes to content. They have no idea. Just like if you're not a car mechanic, what, you're going to start tearing up a car? You don't know what the fuck you're doing, bro. How? Why? You find a mechanic who knows what they're doing, has dealt with thousands of cars, and you give them the fucking keys, and that's it, right? And that's how it should work. Excuse my French. Sorry, I know Chris always says we shouldn't swear words, but I can't help myself, right? But ultimately, if you want to answer how many posts you think, right? So we've got one a week, one post, says Mustafa. One a month is exactly where it was, Jennifer. And you know what's really funny about this? Originally, how much do you think they were posting? They were posting roughly once a week. And this is what you'll see on the socials. Give me a one if you see this. And you've had this yourself. Lots of excitement in the beginning, posting every day. Fantastic, blah, 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 right? Energy, excitement. After a month, posting every other day. After 6 months, posting every month, and after 1 year, bang, done. It's exhausting, and that's one platform on Instagram, for example, right? And you'll see this on a lot of profiles out there. And so my question was simple, like, why do you not post more often? And she said, well, we don't have the bandwidth. I go, exactly. But also, you don't have the bandwidth, but you don't know what you're posting on because the content you actually have is terrible. Right. And I had to tell her that. I go, is it cool if I'm frank with you? And she was like, yeah. As a business owner, they're like, tell me the truth. And I was like, this is the truth. Like, who the hell wrote this blog post? And, you're not answering questions. Same stuff we've been talking about, right? For the last few days. But the fact is, as soon as she understood that, she was like, right, and we looked at her competitor, and guess what her competitor was doing? The one that was kicking her ass, the one that's a pain in the butt, guess how many posts they had? Fucking thousands of posts. They were posting practically 2, 3 times a day, right? It's insane. And when she saw that, it would just clicked and she understood. And they were doing it right. They were answering questions. And, when it comes to book publishing and authoring, it's questions like, is anyone in authoring here? Give me one in the chat real quick, just in case. You're going to know way more than me about this industry. But Jamie, you know about romanticy and, foreshadowing and all this kind of shit. I was learning lots on the call, right? And I'm like, well, have you answered that question of how to foreshadow and how to create an intro and do this and do that, for your novel? No, because they're busy posting about other stuff. But then not only are you not posting on the right stuff, you're not posting at volume. You have no chance. And the fact is, when you look at the competitor, they're just wiping the floor with them. And it's obvious why. And when again, I'm not doing anything that's, gaming the system or anything like that. It's just do good shit. And then, her and her husband, it was a beautiful couple. Initially, she was very frosty. And then by the end, she was like, oh my God, Jay, you know what? I understand this. Thank you so much. Like, this is brilliant. And she signed up, right? So anyway, the point is, volume is key. And, I can reinforce that 100 different ways. And I've got something really cool to show you in a second. But let me ask you this question before I hand it back to Chris, if that's cool, if that's all right with you guys, is how many pages do you think, I mean, who's the biggest ecom business on the planet? And I'm not sharing my screen, so there's no... And Chris has talked about this, but who is the undisputed king, champion, King Kong of ecom, right? Who is it? It's Amazon. And people are like, and again, like Chris mentioned, the ecom arm doesn't make anywhere near as much money as the AWS arm, right? The services they sell. But the fact is, Amazon is king. And how many pages do you think Amazon has? I'll show you. It's actually mind-boggling, right? So let me just show you this real quick. So we've got Amazon on the screen. How many pages do you think they have? Yes. Thank you, Barbara. Look at this. Game, set, match, Amazon. Give me a one if that's striking or that's kicking something or igniting something or putting the light bulb on for us, right? Because that's staggering. And then people wonder, oh, they're so big, oh, but no one stops for a second and thinks, why? It's because they've got fucking pages upon pages upon pages of content very specifically about this headphone and this type of scarf. And, it's exactly what we're talking about, right? And that's exactly what we're trying to say. Post more on the right stuff. The key thing is, right, if we look at the math here real quick and we consider that and we speak to businesses about this all the time. It's like you've got businesses that are, unwilling to spend even 10K a month on creating content, right? Now, I find that just unbelievable. Honestly, I find that ridiculous. You know why? Because what percentage do you think is the standard for a business to spend of their revenue on marketing? If you put that in the chat for me real quick. And Chris, I know we're pushed for time. I'll hand it back to you in a second. I'll just finish this bit off and do that if that's cool. What percentage, really quick question for everybody, very important. Should any business, as a standard, be spending of their revenue on marketing? All marketing combined, all good, no problem. Right, so Barbara says 30%, very aggressive. Maria says 20%. Yep. Jennifer says 20%. Mustafa says 10. Jamie says 5. Right. So if you're spending 30% in your $1 million business, how much is that? That's 300 grand, right? If you divide that by 12, you're looking at like roughly 20, 30K a month. How can you not allocate at least half of that to create content, which is going to compound and compound and compound? Most people do what? They go straight to doing paid ads, which is fine. I'm not shitting on paid ads because that's not what this is about, right? We're talking about blowing paid ads up. But the fact is, like Hormozy said, and like everybody is saying right now, the more you post, the more volume you put out, the more content you'll have, the more organic, everything will work out for you. And especially with ads, when someone sees an ad, they don't buy straight away. What do? They do the research. If you don't hit them at those points on every platform, some people have Facebook, some people research on YouTube, some people research on Instagram, right? So all the stuff that we've been talking about. But the fact of the matter is, like some people have said 30%. And you know what's really interesting about this? A new brand, and this might surprise you, but a new brand starting out should actually spend more on marketing in the beginning. Why? Because their brand is not established yet. So they should be closer to the 20 to 30% and factor that into their business plans, but they don't do that, right? Because they're trying to, scrape the barrel, which I understand because we've done the same thing when we first started, right? Because we're not funded. We bootstrap the whole way. So we understand that. But we also understand you have to spend money on marketing. You have to, right? Otherwise, how are you going to grow? And so, yes, referrals, this, that, blah, 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 but it's impossible. And so brands starting out should actually be spending more. And if you look at 20 to 30% for them, then the bigger brands, typically 5 to 10% is where they should be. And if you do the math, you look at their revenue, look at their profit, and you should always, look at these things, and you guys should look at your own. You should be spending that because if you spend $10,000, you grow to $100,000 per month. These are from the data and the results we've shown you. I don't want to keep throwing data at you. You've seen it. We know what we're doing, right? But if they spend $20,000, they grow to $150,000 per month. That's $1.56 million per year. So it's just about spending more. And, I've had this conversation again with so many ecom businesses where I'm like, okay, so, how are you getting your customers right now? And they're like, well, we're doing the paid ad stuff and all this. I'm like, great. Okay, awesome. And on that front, what's your ROAS? And they're like, oh, ROAS is great, man. Bro, we're killing it. It's like 5 to 7x. And I'm like, wow. Because 1 to 2x is incredible, right? Well, decent. 5x or above is unbelievable. And to consider when it comes to content spend, the return on content spend 50x. And I've showed you example after example, just like Chris has, right? Don't want to bore you with that. But you know what I said to them? I'm like, well, why not just spend more money on fucking ads? Why not double down on what's working? If you're getting a 5 to 7x, you should be dumping as much money as you can. Well, not dumping, but putting it in to grow that channel. But obviously, people don't do that, right? Which is nuts. But at the end of the day, if you can get a 50x and you're building content, which is going to last forever, because paid ads, once they switch off, what happens? So give me a one in the chat. I know you guys get this, right? The paid ads game is like a hamster wheel. If you stop paying for paid ads, what happens? Your business is finished. And that's a massive, massive, massive risk, right? And I'm not saying don't do paid ads, do them 100%, go crazy, right? If they're working, fantastic, but you need to cover yourself off when it comes to content because that's what's going to compound and build and build and build. And last few things here. Number one, who's heard there's so much wisdom in history, right? And this is why I'm obsessed with it, but who's heard the quote, someone is sitting in the shade today because they planted a tree 2 years ago or a year ago. I don't paraphrasing here, right? That's it. That's content 101. Done, right? So post regularly, post consistently, and you'll get the results that come from that, right? And the last thing I wanted to share real quick, just as a bit of a laugh here for you guys, but I put this together with ChatGPT earlier. And Chris, I'll hand it back to you. But before I do that, I put this together, right? Again, excuse my French. You guys know I like to bend the English language, let's say, now and again. But I'm passionate about what I do, so I'm not going to apologize for it. But I love you guys, and hopefully, if I'm causing offense at any point, let me know. But just fucking post, right? I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but brick by brick, layer by layer. And there's a story I always tell of Will Smith who was with his brother in his backyard with his father, and his father was like, "We need to build a wall." And the kids were like, "Shit, we need to build a wall." Like, "Oh my God, that's going to take ages." And he was like, "Forget the wall. There is no wall." Wow. There is no wall. There's just a brick and the cement you're going to put on that fucking brick, and that's it. And day by day, all you focus on is that brick. Forget the wall. Right? And I don't want to sound like Yoda right now, but fuck me, wow. Like that's just poetic, right? But it makes sense. Just focus on the brick and do it consistently. Don't worry about anything else, and things will come together. Obviously, we want to make sure that brick is the best damn brick we can lay down, right? The best shape, the best content, the best whatever, but we've covered that. And whether you do this with us or not, it doesn't make a difference, but just lay the best brick you can, but do it on a regular basis. And Barbara, you asked me earlier as well. You asked me, you know, is 3 amps and 3 blogs and stuff like this going to be enough? Like, hopefully I've answered that, right? Which is, it doesn't matter. Just post more. If you post more, you're going to get more results. And people overthink it. Oh, how many amps and how many blogs? Just fucking post, right? With all due respect, just fucking post. And if you guys like this image, give me one in the chat. Chris is going to kill me for this. But if you guys like this, if it makes sense, it's a timely reminder. We all have this, right? We all overthink, we all get in the weeds. But if you just post more and then you refine the content and you get better, and on and on it goes. And also, there are so many channels. Like, give me a 5 if you follow an Instagram influencer or somebody in in the influencer space. What you'll find is when you go back to their original content, the reason they're successful is because that's what they did. They just fucking posted, right? And if you go all the way back, and you go all the way back to the original posts that they ever put out there, they look like shit. They act like they don't know what they're doing, but they don't give a fuck because they're like, we're just gonna post, baby. And then after 10 weeks, what happens? Oh, no one liked this post. People like that post. Okay, I'm gonna post more on that, right? And I'm gonna, sort myself out, maybe have a shave or something like that, right? And that video didn't quite hit because the intro wasn't good, and I need to hit the the pain points right away in 5 seconds and blah blah blah. But it happens because they posted and they had data, and then they can progress. So I think, overthinking kills a lot of businesses, but hopefully, that was a nice little timely reminder. But no, Chris, with that, I'd like to hand it back to you. If I've missed any points, let me know. But I think that pretty much covers it on my side.
And so there was a good question coming in from John who's getting a bit confused on the process. So he's like, hey, you told me that you need to post on my website, but you shouldn't advertise everything and promote everything and so on. So I'm going to share my screen here and just draw this out very, very quickly just to bring it all together, right? What you do, just in case there's any confusion here with what you do, right? So, step one, right, is, and let me zoom in here so I can actually see what we're saying. So step one, okay, is you find your topics, okay? Find topics, okay? So we covered that in day one, use tools like Headline Pick, all of these. So you find topics, right, which essentially answer buyer questions, okay? And then step two is you post every day, okay, a blog post to your site, okay? And then step three is you promote or amplify your blog content, okay? You can do all of it, but it's totally fine to do somewhere between, say, 10 and 30%, okay? So you promote, amplify, say 10, 30% of your blog content. You can also do all of it, okay? So you can also be automatically posting some of this stuff to social media, everything else. But this is kind of the approach that we take is typically we'll take 10 to 30% of the blog content. So we look at the blog content as let's see what takes off. Let's see what shows up. Let's see what gets traffic. Let's see what gets sales. And then we'll just promote a selection of it. Okay. And so what you end up having is you have your website. Okay. And then you have blog posts, which are being added every single day. Okay. So this here, your site, okay? These are the blog posts on your site, and you're going to have a number of these. So you have one, day 2, okay, day 3, all right, day 4, day 5, day 6, okay, day 7, all right? So now you've got these blog posts all on your website, okay? And they're all driving traffic. Where will the blog post link to? They'll link to the most relevant page on your site. If you're talking about, a cell phone cover, you link to the relevant cell phone cover, okay? And so now here, 1 week's gone by, and I'm like, okay, so now I want to really amplify some of this. And so I notice that maybe one blog post is already taking off quite well, okay? And so this is where I'm gonna amplify, okay? And so I run an amp, okay? And an amp here, this is going to do a short, it's going to do an article, it's going to do another blog post, okay? It's going to do an infographic, going to do a slideshow, it's going to do a podcast, it's going to do social media, okay? It's going to do a longer informational video, and so on, right? So this is the amp, right? So it's doing a lot of stuff. I can barely fit all this inside the box. And this is all posted on other websites. So it's posted to 300 plus sites. Okay. So like Google News, YouTube, okay, Medium, like a bunch of different places where it goes out to. Okay. And we link and we're promoting, and it's on a similar topic to this. So let's just say this blog post, and I'll give you a real example in a moment, actually, to bring this together. And then I'm going to do this again, say for another post. And this depends on my budget because it costs a bit more and takes a bit more time. It's like a little bit of extra effort to, go through the process and actually do this. Okay. And so I might do this as well then, say for one of the posts that week. Okay. And they're going to be, the AMP is going to be on a similar or same topic as the blog post. Okay. Right. So there we go. Okay. And so I'm generally going to do this based on what's already performing. Paul says, well, what about doing it for blog posts that you think might perform well, but currently they're not getting any traffic? So sometimes I will also do that. Primarily, though, rather than bet on something that isn't working, I will tend to bet on something that's working. So, for example, if I've got a blog post that's been referenced in AI, that it's already in a good position, if I amplify it, if it moves up just one position, the traffic can double. Okay. Whereas if I've got something that's not working, yes, it might move up onto page 1. It might suddenly start working, but unless I kind of see it getting some traction, I would tend not to push that one just from experience. But occasionally they'll be like, I really want this one to work, so I'll give it a try. And sometimes it does work. So to give you an example here, so here's a post on the AmpiFire blog. Okay. So we'll just go take a look at the post here. So this is a post we put together answering the potential buyer question for our audience of how to submit a press release to Yahoo News. We publish to Yahoo, and so we have a product and a service which can deliver this for people. Okay. And so we answer how to do this. We tell them how they can do it. We tell them a bit about the Yahoo News website. We show how you can try and reach and work with them directly, which is actually really difficult. Most cases they won't publish. We mention some competitors which do it, but we mention ourselves as essentially the best option. Okay. And so this is essentially a promotional piece for our content while also answering really useful buyer questions. Okay. And so this isn't going to be a post that has thousands of searches per month. It's not getting massive amounts of volume. Okay. It's getting 227 clicks that come through. Okay. Through the past, say, about half a year since it's kicked in. And once we saw it getting a few clicks here, we decided we'll run an AMP, and we bumped it up and we increased the amount of clicks. And so when you go search in Google here, we are the second reference site, and also our AMP is referenced here as well. Make sense? And so we were able to get more coverage. And so we are the source here. So if you want a third-party distribution source, okay, then it references all of these different things that we've put out here. And I think we are in the Yahoo is number one, and our AMP and our website is showing up then in the top as well. All right. So it's really that straightforward of you essentially pick the pages on your site which you want to publish. And then also now we have also seen that, this content now that we publish it across all sorts of different sites. We, for example, saw the reel of this starting to get a few views as well on some of the different social media platforms and so on of some of the different channels that we post to. So not only now are we getting traffic from search, also some of this content is showing up in the feeds of different marketers who are interested in doing this type of submission. All right, so give me a one in the chat box if this now is coming together clear about how you go about this, that you post every day on your website and then you promote a percentage of that content everywhere that you possibly can. And of course, you can also be sharing and pushing these blog posts on social media and stuff every single time. That's your choice. But when we really go hard and we create all of the different formats and post it everywhere, we tend to do that for the highest potential piece of the content. And we do that, at about a ratio of somewhere about 10 to 30% of the posts that we make. And the interesting thing is just by promoting these two posts, then what we will find is that the traffic to everything goes up. Okay, so when you promote two posts, then just because everything interlinks to each other on the website, because it's all part of the same brand, then the brand itself becomes more popular. And across search, social, video, AI answers, the brand improves overall. And the key is just doing this consistently on a regular basis. If you do these three things, you are literally covering search traffic, okay, which includes AI answers. Okay, you're getting social media traffic because you're posting to social media each week. You're also getting video traffic because you're posting videos each week. You're also getting image traffic because you're posting infographics and images each week, so you can show up in images. And image traffic and image search can be a significant source of traffic. Okay, you're also building trust through podcasts, okay, and essentially longer videos, okay, which can also show up in searches and also just show up in people's feeds. So all of these different channels of traffic you are now delivering on, okay? And this is how it's done, and this is how you get huge, huge results, okay? So this is how you bring all of this together with what we talked about. It's just as simple, okay, as post every day, okay? Post every day. And if you post every day, things just fall into place. Okay, it's really that simple. And with Ampcast, you can create unlimited content. Okay, so with Ampcast, you can create unlimited content if you have access to the platform and you're one of the founding backers for that. Okay, and even if you don't have access to Ampcast, say there wasn't spots available, something like that, we've still given you, okay, it's still in the Facebook group, all of the resources which we've talked about. So, there are options here. Okay, all the tools and resources here have been posted, and so you do have other options here. You can use some of our tools here for coming up with topics. You've got your DNA extractor to help give you an advantage when creating content. We've given you an article writer for free here. We've given you a script generator here so you can script videos. And so, if you want to go the more manual way, right, that's still an option using like the different AI tools. Obviously, there's limitations and so on. But we've given you more than enough here to jump in and get started with, right? If it's not the right time for you to be part of Ampcast or you couldn't get access, anything like that. But we've given you a lot of stuff here that you can use to move this forward. So 100% you can still start posting every day and at least doing the blog posts, right? And then maybe converting them into a script for social media, okay? And then creating videos out of those and stuff as well using the various AI tools out there. We've got a lot of courses, a lot of info, a lot of stuff on our YouTube channel to help you do this, okay? And so we're coming to the end here. We will share with you how to get access to Ampcast here at the end if you want to stick around for that. But I just want to ask you a question here is, do you feel that you got a lot of value out of the sessions which we covered over the past few days? Has this helped you see how you can improve the results from your paid ads? Okay. When paid ads are declining, can you see how through the invisible funnel, the invisible research chaos funnel that's happening, that by putting out content on a regular basis, you improve your ad conversions? And if you're not doing this, you're optimizing only for the 6% of buyers who don't do research online. Okay. Those impulse buyers, which is very, very few and increasingly few people. If you do it, you're optimizing for this, and your paid ads are going to continually improve as you put out more content. And not only that, it's also a great source of traffic in and of itself. And the way that you go about this to help people both find what they're looking for, to have the trust with your brand to move forward when they're doing the research, is you answer questions. And when you answer questions, you're also driving traffic into your business, right? Because you'll show up. Okay. And we talked about as well, okay, the process of then creating the content with Ampcast, how it's faster. All right. How the type of content that you will create, and looking at case studies of how this stuff was done over time. And then we've looked at the algorithms here, how they work, what you should be focused on. Search and answers primary. The interest algorithm also important. You have to keep the audience consistent. We've looked at how AI content is working extremely well for these informational queries, and that the world people are looking for more answers and more specific answers more than ever. And the key here is doing a lot of this content at high volume. Okay, you will get access to this whiteboard as well. We'll post it as well in the Facebook group. Okay, we'll send this stuff out to you over email if you've signed up to the challenge, which is why you're here watching this. Okay, if you signed up, then you'll get all of these resources and stuff as well. And so we will continue now with this challenge, okay, over the next few weeks and months. And so if you are in to continue working with us, posting every day, okay, right? Posting every day to drive more traffic. If you miss a day, okay, right, it's fine. It happens, okay? But if you're in for this challenge, and maybe you don't post every day right away, maybe it takes you a little bit just to build up the systems or the time or the habit of doing this, but give me just a one in the chat, or let me know, in the YouTube comments, right, that you are in for this. Okay, just say that you're in for the challenge. And so we will meet, okay, every week at 11 a.m., okay, Eastern, every Wednesday. Okay. Over Christmas, we might have a couple of days that we're not going to be on, but typically we'll be on every single day, 11 a.m. Eastern, New York time, every Wednesday, talking about how you can grow your traffic with AI, with content. We go deep into lots of different subjects, lots of different techniques, show more and more case studies, show more and more examples, and just lots of other free tools and techniques and everything that you can do to grow your e-commerce sales. And remember, there's prizes here available. Okay. And so as we go through this over the next few months, then there is a top prize of 10K, okay, for the brand that increases its traffic and sales the most. And we've got some other runner-up prizes. And remember, we also had the competition for this weekend as well. If I can find it on my big whiteboard here. Where was it? All the way over here. So much stuff that we've covered. All right. And so, you could earn points just by registering for the challenge, by turning up to the sessions, by actually entering the challenge and submitting your details, which is on the page here. It's, I think it's step number 5, I think. Let me see. So if you haven't done already, make sure that you enter your brand. Okay, step number 5 here to join the competition. I'll put this in the chat here just for a second, but just make sure that you sign up. Okay, also just a reminder is you can refer people with this link as well that's in the Facebook post, and we'll track this. And if you refer a friend who registers to any of the sessions, okay, any of the sessions this past weekend, or also next Wednesday's session, you get 20 points. Okay, and we're giving away free content planning where I will plan all of your content for you, okay, for the next few months. And also we'll be giving away AMP credits that you can use for anything which you can buy from us, okay, in terms of like distribution, content, all of that stuff. And so there's one of those available as well. And this is just a challenge which is going on until next Wednesday, okay? But then there'll be new prizes, new competitions, which are going to be rolling out every few weeks, every month, as well as the big prize for growing the most sales and most traffic, all right? And this is just for fun, right? If you're growing the most already, okay, then, the prize is probably insignificant. But, just to make it a little bit more fun, I've always grown really well when I take part in little competitions like this, as I just find it focuses me, and, just the natural competitive nature of entrepreneurs, it just helps you focus and drives you forward really, really quick. All right. And so if you have any questions, you're welcome to come back through to the Facebook post here and ask any questions that you might have. The link for that here is in the chat. Riley will just post this. And if you are interested, if you didn't have chance yet to check out Ampcast, or you've got some further questions on Ampcast, then we're going to run that presentation again that we did yesterday, so you can see how Ampcast works, and you can see if it's something that you want to be part of and something that you would like to be engaged in. And just to note that if you are joining Ampcast, we do have some ground rules for this, okay, in that there is only a limited number of spots. And so if you are going to be joining Ampcast, the requirements, which should be on the checkout page when you check out, is that you are going to post, and you don't have to do it immediately, but you are going to use it regularly. You're going to be posting content regularly. You're going to be giving us feedback, okay? And you're essentially going to be, part of our community. And when you have success, you will also let us know and share some stats. You don't have to reveal your brand, but at least share some stats so that we can see how things are going. That's why we only have a limited amount of slots here, because we do help people very, very hands-on. You might have seen that on Monday's session here, where I gave a lot of feedback for people's individual brands as well. And we do that regularly. If you're part of our community, you can jump in, you can ask a question, you get answers from me and our coaches on team who will just help you out. That isn't anything that's an extra charge. All right. We really work with our community and our customers to help you succeed and help you move forward with your brands. And it helps us to improve and grow our platform so that we're all winners in this. All right. So thank you very much. And Jay, you can jump back in here and take it away with the Ampcast presentation here. And again, if you've got any questions, Facebook group, okay, in the chat, you can also email us support@ampifire.com anytime. And thanks so much as well over this weekend for the kickoff of the challenge. You've all been an awesome audience, great questions, all of this stuff. So really looking forward to working with you over the next few months. All right, so let's kick off and we'll replay the Ampcast session here so you can see what the software is all about. AI titans have destroyed easy traffic for the average business.
This isn't just another update. CTRs are dropping by over 50%.
It's happening so fast that yes, people may not adapt fast enough.
If you make content, things are about to get dramatically different.
Things are going to be very different now.
We will have more supply of content than we've ever seen before.
You got to optimize for the different platforms out there.
32% of consumers are now using social media as their primary search engine.
Free traffic has literally gotten a lot harder, and paid ads are costing more and more.
How big is your online footprint?
How do we get visible on all these platforms? How do we be omnipresent?
I think today, if you're doing stuff, you have to do it in a cross-platform, cross-format way.
We're going to use generative AI as well. And so you're going to have to be better.
In 2025, showing up in search isn't just about your website anymore. It's about creating content that's findable everywhere your audience is looking.
Right, so there we have it. Organic traffic from absolutely everywhere. It's the only way, and the results are absolutely epic. So check this out. Boom.
old stuff's not working anymore, and you have to be AI first company now.
I sold $85,000 worth of amps in 48 hours.
His site is being found by AI and recommended. I'm like, this is crazy.
In 30 minutes, changed my whole life and destroyed my existing PR person in-house. Like, I'm excited about that.
I literally trashed everything else. I'm not doing anything except for this.
I can tell you, people are thanking me up the wazoo after I'm done with their calls. I go, thank you so much.
He's paying $9,500 a month for, like, we're completely fixing his business for him. I have like this 4-month window where I'm like, screw ads, let me just build up his organic.
That the done for you that they offer made my shit look like absolute dirt under more shit. I was phenomenally blown at the awesomeness of how the AmpiFire team writes.
I believe the recipe is a killer.
Yeah, I went to their office and pulled it up on the screen and showed them. And then I logged into my Ahref account and showed them, the graphs.
Studied a lot of marketing. I've taken a lot of courses. I've tried a lot of things. It's kind of frustrating. I signed up with you guys and it made sense from the beginning. Now I know it works because it just delivers what is promised.
Because he's like, I was done with the game, like the SEO game, the content game. And he was like, this has literally made me excited again.